We're at the auto show, end of the day here almost, at the Toyota stand. You know, I would say that the automakers, that the Japanese automakers and the Korean automakers, we've been making a lot of headway here recently, a lot of new models, different powertrains, and that's really important for Toyota in particular. They really are pushing forward with the alternative powertrains like hybrids, even stuff like natural gas and things like that. But for the most part, they want to really kind of give you more options. They say the consumer wants choice, and I spoke to Toyota EVP Jack Hollis. He's also head of motor sales there too, and he was talking about how the consumer really wants choice, and one of those things is for hybrids. Here's what he had to say.
Well, Camry has been so good. You know, we stayed committed to the sedan market. Having a new Camry come out 22 years in a row, best-selling sedan in America, and it's fun to bring it out. The highlight of it is that it's 100% hybrid. And so I think what people don't really realize in the Camry of how successful it's been, we've always stayed ahead of the curve on whatever powertrain, whatever we're doing. So to bring that in 100% hybrid, that's a big, big deal. Adding the hybrid to Tacoma, another place. Again, it's electrifying our entire lineup. We keep going, and then we come right back. We got some other ones still coming. Land Cruiser's not too far behind, and I think it's fun for our dealers to get excited about the next new product. But what's great is we've had a nice cadence. It's not all at one time. It's been spaced out over the last several years, and we're really encouraged where we're going.
Well, kind of rounding out that product portfolio. You know, last year you guys had a pretty good year here in the U.S. Those kind of supply chain crunches were over, but also rolling out those new products. And Toyota famously didn't go too hard in EVs, right? They kind of took their time. They spoke about what customers wanted. And where do you kind of see that right now? Or do you think that was the right move at this point?
Yeah, and here's the reason why it was the right move. The way to find out what you need to sell, I'm sorry that it's so simple, is what is it the customer is asking for, what is it that our dealers are asking for, and give it to them. What we are hearing is that they want our EVs as an option. And the big question really becomes then what's the right percentages? Some people want a gas engine, and some people want a hybrid, and some people want a plug-in, and some people want an electric, but some people want a hydrogen. How are we giving that to the marketplace? So we're going to continue down that path of just listening to what that customer wants and then provide it to them the best, to the best of our ability.
So as an example, the new Tacoma, that is a big, big seller for you guys. Yeah. Now I believe it's going to be fully hybridized. Is that correct?
Not fully. So we'll still have the gas engine. We'll have the hybrid option. It's our iForce Max.
Power.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Okay.
iForce Max. It's kind of like with Tundra. Same kind of idea. You have both options for it. But it's showing where we're seeing is customers. We have a certain base who is saying, I want this, and another base is saying, I want that. We're giving it to them both.
In also a more efficient way. So,
absolutely.
Speaking of efficiency, recently in the U.S. they just sort of changed some of the Biden White House EV transition rules, making it a bit easier for bigger manufacturers to build more cars like hybrids, as opposed to going full EVs by, let's say, 2030. Yeah. Those conditions beyond emissions and things like that have been loosened for a bit longer. From Toyota's standpoint, I know Toyota and also the industry were sort of asking for a bit more time to have that transition in place. Yeah. Does that mean that we're not going to go full EV anytime soon?
Wow, there's several things there. If you don't, well, because one part of it is, what's the question we're trying to answer with EVs? Mm-hmm. Are we trying to sell as many EVs as possible? Well, I don't know. What's the question? The question really that we at Toyota continue to ask is, how do we reduce carbon emissions as fast as possible, everywhere possible, with everybody participating? See, our goal is to have everybody who, globally, to participate in reducing carbon emissions. Does that mean EV is the answer? Well, some people in government has said it is. We're saying it's a answer if we want to do it faster, if we want to have everybody included. And so there's a lot of pieces there. The EV itself is a very high transaction price. Not everybody can pay that. Or infrastructure. Not everybody can even have it in their home because they're living in an apartment. Or we can go on and on. What if you're in the cold states, and how does cold affect the EV? So it is part of the solution. And so Toyota itself, we're all in on electrification, meaning choice of hybrid, plug-in hybrid, EV, and hydrogen to solve that question. The question really then, the issue that becomes is, what's the question, or what's the solution to the Biden administration's their concerns? And right now they're saying, well, it's EV. Because if you think about it, even though the EPA has changed last week, 2032 hasn't changed.
Right, not that far, not the long way.
It's not that, it's a short time if you consider the fact that in the last 10 years, we've gone from 0% to 8% of the market.
Full EVs, yeah.
Full EVs. So full EVs have gone to 8% of the market. Now, from 2042, 8 more years. So that was 10 years to get to there. The next 8 years, we want to go to 67%. That's 10 years to get to 8%. Some of those math is very difficult. What we want to do is, if you can use all of electrification to solve the consumer's desire to participate in reducing climate, now we can get somewhere. We just think 2032 is a little too short term, and we have to go a little bit longer so that the customer can come with us on that journey.
So do you think that the hybrids, the plug-ins, mild hybrids, can they get us to where we need to be from a CO2 emissions point of view by 2032, for instance?
Absolutely. And I think one of the elements is that we have to remember, and I've shared this a couple times, sorry if we've said it before, but the amount of the minerals needed, we have to think about as our precious metals or limited or resources. And one BEV, if you use the same amount of resources, I can build you 6 plug-in hybrids, reducing significant amount of CO2 and costing about 6 to 8 grand less per vehicle. Or I can give you that same material, that 1 or that 6, and I can build you 90 hybrids at another 6 grand less and so much more affordable. So the issue is in each one of these, they're reducing carbon very quickly, but I'm getting more participation. And I think it's important to understand we need everybody to participate if we're going to really make a difference. If it's just EVs, if you look at it, it's only 8%. How much is that really reducing when a majority of the people buying the EVs right now are buying it as an extra vehicle in their fleet? So there's a lot of pieces to this. That's why we think taking a little longer time to get to that goal will allow all of us to participate.
Yeah, we're talking about passenger cars. We're not talking about trucks and freight and things like that. That's another story. But big picture for Toyota in the U.S., how do you view the U.S. market right now? Yeah. People thought that the market would sort of come down a bit, we might have a recession, but that's not happening right now. People are a bit more, consumer confidence is higher. What are you guys seeing from your customers' point of view? Are they still going to the dealerships and buying cars and trucks?
So there's an industry answer and a Toyota answer. I'll start with your Toyota answer. From a Toyota answer standpoint, is we still have demand greater than supply. Now, while we've handled all the supply chain issues, we're still seeing a significant demand for our vehicles. And like we just talked about a little earlier, we have a lot of new products, so there's a lot of pent-up demand still. So you're going to see, from a Toyota standpoint, of continuing to have a very flat ground stock. We're not growing our ground stock, we're selling as many as we can build. So we're in a good place. Well, what does that say about the industry? The industry itself is also going to see a little bit of growth this year. We're going to probably get real close to a 16 million market. Assuming that's the case, and I still think it might even be over that. And I don't know so much of its consumer confidence as it is more of a pent-up demand. And the reason I say that is the average age of a vehicle now is over 12 and a half years old. It's the oldest fleet in the history of the U.S.
It's unbelievable, right?
So at what point people are saying, it's time I have to go buy a vehicle? We're still seeing that play in some of the dragged on. You talk about long COVID, this is called long demand from COVID, and I still think that's really healthy for the industry.
More of that COVID effect is still here with us. It was a massive kind of effect on the industry. We're still seeing that kind of uptake happen now. Last question, this is going to be a little bit more my personal kind of viewpoint here, but are we going to see more manual transmission cars? So, the GR Corolla enthusiasts hit, the Tacoma also comes to the manual transmission. Are you seeing a little bit of an uptake there from people that want a bit more of engagement, that kind of driving kind of feeling?
So, am I going to see a lot more? Probably not a lot more. Do you see the enthusiasts, though, who are demanding it? Yes. So, like I said earlier, ask what the customer wants, deliver it to them. So we see a place for manual transmissions. We're even seeing from Toyota and some of the engineering is, how do you make a manual transmission work with an electric powertrain? Well, that's going to be interesting as we're going, so I'm not going to give anything away yet, but we see the passionate driver, someone who are truly drivers, they're not going away from that manual anytime soon. So how do we make that happen in a still environmentally friendly way? And those are some of the solutions we're still working on and we'll get to.
So I had to ask about the manual transmission, of course, me being me, but what really struck me from that conversation, though, was the aspect that their demand is not meeting, or their supply is still below demand. They have more demand than they can actually supply, and this is for a company that sells several million vehicles a year. I mean, that's really astonishing. I think that's sort of like one of the main headlines there from that interview.
Yeah, and Pras, what I took away is they're really the consumer, especially the American auto buyer, wants to retain optionality. I got to think that the charging infrastructure status of the U.S. is not quite up to snuff, and range anxiety is a real thing. Just wondering how much does this factor into some of their business planning? What was your takeaway on that?
I mean, he mentioned that the number of sort of roadblocks that exist for the EV transition, right? That's one of them, is the sort of availability or lack of availability of chargers. He also mentioned high price. That was a big thing. How do you get adoption in the mass market if EVs cost generally more money than their standard, their road going or gas-powered car options? I think that's sort of the big problems that Toyota sees in the transition as we speak right now. And I want to briefly mention that we heard back from Toyota about what happened in Baltimore, the port closure there. Toyota mentioned that it's not affecting them right now, but they do have some effect on their exports. Toyota makes a lot of cars in the US that they export elsewhere, and that's sort of having somewhat of a small impact there from that Baltimore port closure.
All right, Pras, Subramanian, looking good at the auto show there. Thanks for stopping by.